Today, I'm going to be sharing with you the singular best strategy in all of real estate. And how can a person even know that? Well, I wrote a book on it because I compared all strategies against each other, and I came up with a strange hybrid that has helped a lot of people make a lot of money. Here it comes.
'Cause we're gonna be legends. What we're doing here ain't just scary. It's about to be legendary.
Part of how I arrived at the best strategy in real estate was actually evaluating the risks. And I want to share with you some of my thought process when I was actually doing the math on which strategy was best. And then later I'll share with you exactly what it is. But you see, the first thing that I wanted to do is I said, what are the problems in real estate? One of those problems is that markets, they go up and they go down. What's the problem with that? You know how many people in 2008 lost their shorts, lost their real estate back to the bank? They call it the Great Recession. Not as bad as the Great Depression, but the Great Recession was a time where the government was printing money like crazy to keep us from going into a major economic downturn. But during that period of time, a lot of people had loans on real estate at 8, 9, 10%, and they couldn't sustain them. And so they all went back to the banks. And the government said, we got to stimulate the economy by lowering the rates. And that's what the Fed did. And they've been doing it for the last decade since. Well, markets go up and markets go down. And I want to tell you this, it'll never stop doing it. Roughly every 15 years, the market goes up and back down again, which means that if your strategy is dependent on working when the market is up, but not when it's down, I would call that a bad strategy. You can't time the market. You don't know when it's going to happen. So I needed something that would mitigate the risk of up and down markets. It would have to work no matter what. I would need to be recession proof. That was the first problem. The second problem was what would happen if you couldn't collect rents? Like, this is every brand new investor's favorite fantasy, right? It's like, I bought this property and what if it doesn't rent? And they'll say it just like that. What if it doesn't rent? And they're right. If it doesn't rent for a month, someone's got to pay that. Yeah, but what if it doesn't rent 2 months? What if it had 3 properties and none of them were rented all at once? It's like the imagination wants to go nuts with worst case scenarios. Because if we have an answer to a worst case scenario, we feel better. So I agree. What happens when rents aren't there and you've got a small cash flow in the first place? It's a real problem. The third one is, what do you do when you don't have cash flow? And what I mean by no cash flow is, I do have the property rented, but there's not leftover money. And then there's an expense that comes up and guess what? Boom, it hits your personal bank account. You got to write a check for that. That's also super problematic. What do you do if tenants are bad? They actually beat up your property. I've had it happen before. I mean, the most bizarre thing I ever did was walk into a property where I saw piles of dog poop everywhere and motorcycle tracks from the ground up the side of the wall. And I'm like, what happened in here? Cat piss on top of it, which you just almost can't get out. What happens if you have someone that beats up your house and you have to write a $10,000 check to get things fixed? It's not exactly a happy day for a brand new investor. And the fifth one is what happens when you sell a property and you lose. Like, I'm flipping a property, for example, and I have to sell it for less than it's worth. So literally just losing on the sale of a property. These are the 5 biggest problems that people look at in real estate. So I said, with 30 strategies out there, there has to be a best strategy, something that can actually eliminate all of these negatives. So it's got to work in up and down markets. It can't have the tenant problems that most renters face. It can't have the problems of flipping where you could flip one deal and make 90 grand and flip another deal and lose 90 grand. What is it going to actually be? What I have found to be the singular best strategy in the game of real estate is actually buying single family homes below the median, below a certain price point. And then instead of renting them, doing a lease option and then selling them inside of a 5-year period of time. Those 4 pieces right there, let me kind of walk you through that for a minute. Single family real estate is the real estate in highest demand. And if it's below the median or under $200,000, you have the most number of people trying to buy it. So now you have the most popular real estate that the most people actually want to own in an area. And then I learned about a lease option, which is instead of renting houses, if you're doing it in your backyard, you should purchase homes that you can do a rent to own with, meaning put a family in the home that has the intention of buying it. those people pay more for rent every month. And those people also take care of the house. So now I get rid of my tenant condition problems, and I also get rid of my low cash flow problems. And then on top of it, if I sell it in 5 years, doing all of those things usually allows me to double my money inside of 5 years and double my portfolio. Check it out. If I buy properties below the median, look at the safety that I get from this issue right here. You see, in a recession, $1 million house becomes a $500,000 house because no one wants to buy it. And a $500,000 house becomes like a $300,000 house. And a $300,000 house becomes like a $220,000 house. But a $220,000 house becomes like a $180,000 house. And a $180,000 house becomes $160,000, and $160,000 becomes $150,000. And ultimately, you get to a point where real estate under the median is actually super protected. In fact, when the market goes down, the rents stiffen and go up. So all of a sudden, we get rid of our market volatility problems. In doing a lease option, I get a tenant that wants to stay there for 2 or 3 years, take care of the house and buy it. So I get rid of my no rent problem. And then they end up giving me a down payment of $5,000 and usually cash flow that's positive $500 a month. I get rid of my cash flow problems. I also get rid of my bad tenant problems because these individuals are trying to buy the house. It's not just a short-term pit stop in their life. And lastly, we put a clause in the contract so it's impossible to sell a property and lose money. In fact, it's impossible to sell a property and make less than $20,000 or $30,000 based on the way we put it together. What I'm basically telling you is that there is a best strategy in all of real estate. It addresses the top risks, and at the end of the day, it usually produces 20 to 30% annual returns. Now, Albert Einstein said that the most powerful financial device ever created is compound interest. And if you compound 20 to 30% returns, you can imagine how I achieved retirement at the age of 26. You can do it a heck of a lot faster. You know, it's easy to make a short little video and claim that this is the best strategy, but I actually worked all the math out in this book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. This is the second edition. We just had this one updated because we've moved 50,000 copies of it. The economy has changed a little bit. But in this book, I actually show the math comparing this strategy against flipping, rentals, and some of the other more common, well-known real estate strategies. At the end of the day, I based my original thesis on this, and that's how I achieved financial freedom so fast. And the reality is this is the best strategy for anyone who has a net worth less than $1 million. If you have millions of dollars, then there's a way to supercharge this strategy. I'm not going to go into that on today's video, but this is perfect for the beginner, the person who's just saying, hey, I'm just trying to make my first million or two. I want a basic 6-figure residual income. All of that is found in this book. Well, I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is this video is coming to an end. And if you're not a subscriber and ringing that bell, I don't know if I'm going to be reminding you about tomorrow's video because I got a video coming out each and every day. The good news is I am giving this book away for free. And if you click the link below, I will drop it in the mail to you. All I ask that you do is cover the shipping. The book itself is paid for. And I give it to you as a gift, hoping that it will make an impact on your financial future. And there's actually more good news. You can subscribe and ring the bell and still find out when tomorrow's video is going to be, because I make all of these videos in service of helping you really control your own destiny in life, both here and in here and here. Thank you so much for watching today, and we'll join you on tomorrow's video.